in this episode.
It's extremely difficult because you have that little voice in your head that says it's okay. And then once you compromise yourself,
once you let that voice happen.
When you compromise, you're compromised for good. And it's hard to get back out of that compromise.
I've heard it said best, that voice knows how to talk to you in all the right ways.
Very enticing.
When that voice gets you once, you're like, I know that angle.
Yeah.
I know that dude wants to go. You want to skip and go to the Cardinal game. That's going to be so much fun. Why? Dude, you can make up to practice. You can go back. Like, you can tell coach, like, listen, I'll get in my swings later, but this is going to be so much fun, and I can do both, right?
But it's a slow death, man. It's the career that when you make that decision, it's not a quick death. You won't realize it where you come back the next day, you might run a couple laps or you might get some slack from your friends, and then you'll be like, oh, everything's fine now. But it's not fine because then it's a slower death because then you at the end of your career, you're going to be wondering, why did this all happen? Well, I thought I was going to play college. I thought I was going to do this. I thought I was going to do that.
It's just leading to be mediocre versus leading to be, a winner.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of The Closing Pitch. My name is Spiker Helms, and this is a show about people, culture, and how to create a winning lifestyle as I adjust the dials for this audio to make sure I'm not overly loud. But Dave, how are you doing today?
Good, man. Doing well.
We have an interesting topic from, I hate using the word interesting. I overuse that word.
Depends on who's listening.
I'm trying to eliminate. I bet you if you go back to all the episodes, it starts off with interesting.
We have the best topic ever for you today.
The best topic ever, like stupid marketing BS that like no one cares about. Like it just turns off like very excellent, great, grand. Or like this tournament is the State Global World Series of 14U plus 18U
Only
baseball.
Scout teams can apply.
Only scout teams. Only teams with the word USA can apply. And that says prime. Sorry, that was a little dig into our industry. But hey, anyways, I hope everyone's having a fantastic day. Big topic for today is talking about commitment and level of commitment. And in the past, we've talked about multi-sport athletes. So we're going to touch on that as well. And when going from the transition of youth to high school, there is a massive difference from a training perspective, as well as an education perspective, as well as even a brain development standpoint. And then when you go from high school to college, the same aspect. And then from college to the real world, it's just stepping stones. It's different phases in your life. It's like it's different chapters. It's a different part of your journey. The hero's journey always has different twists and turns and mountains that they have to climb to get to the point of who they are as a person and get an actual realization of who they actually are. That's what just makes a really good Hollywood film or a good story. And everyone has that type of story in their life if you kind of look back at your different timelines. So with that said, the best piece of advice that is not really the best piece of advice is you should do everything your freshman year. Guys, there's only so much time in a day. There's only so much, there's only a certain amount of 24 hours in a day that each person has. Now, I don't want you to use that as an excuse to stop doing stuff that you should be doing. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that, yes, try different things, but also have a priority list of your commitments and really honor those commitments. And if you're not going to be committed to that thing when you say you're going to do it, that's being half in and half out, and you're not being productive and you're not developing your skill sets. You're just literally spreading yourself too thin.
What I think is bothering me these days, and I don't want to come off as the crotchety old man coach here that says, well, you have to be at every single thing possible. Well, and I don't want to do that, but I do think the term commitment is getting looser and looser and looser these days. And just from having, been in it now for quite a long time, I see more players, like you said, getting spread thin. But honestly, the the question when asked, like, hey, you've now committed to this team. Are you going to be at most, if not all, of the practices? Are you going to be at all of our games if you can? I mean, we understand as coaches and program directors that things come up, family gatherings, emergencies, you're sick, whatever it might be. Okay, that's understandable. But man, there have been more players, and I'm talking the last 4 or 5 years, missing practices, games, single workout, whatever it might be, or when we put on our educational nights, like when we did our college nights, or anything that we're trying to do to help, or now in the world of Zoom, our webinars and things like that to try to help you in this process. I feel like we are getting more and more excuses as to why they can't be there, and I don't understand it. That's the hardest thing for me to get, and I'll tell you why. Because something as simple as when I was growing up, and I sound like the crotchety old man, but when I was growing up, when you committed to something, that was your priority, okay? And you looked at your schedule, and you know how much time you have, and you know your other commitments, okay? So I had school, I had my social life with my friends, I had my duties that I needed to do at home, and then I had my sports, okay? And when it was my baseball season, it was my baseball season, okay? When I had to be at practice, I had to be at practice. When I had games, I was at games. And when a coach asked me to do extra, I did extra, or whatever it might be, because that was a simple commitment. I was committing to my team, and what that meant to me, this is what I was taught, was, you're there to get better so that your team can have more success on the field and you can have more success as an individual. And no, you can't go miss a practice because you want to go do something with your friends. No, you can't go miss a practice because you slacked off with your homework. You're just going to have to stay up later and finish it. Like, you're going to your practice. I'm sorry about you, but you're going to have to learn how to do time management a little bit better, young man. That was the message that I had, because it was a commitment. Now, when it was done, it was done. Then I had other commitments, right? But man, I don't know if it's kids are getting spread thin, or I think that slippery slope that happens when parents allow you to break one commitment, that certainly leads to 2 to 3 to 4. And now it's so easy. I have my weekly hitting at 7:00 on Wednesday night this week, but you know what, man? I'm just tired. It was a rough day at school. Like, I'd just rather take a nap.
It's prioritizing self-discipline. That has not been in the forefront in the last 10 years, in my opinion, in mainstream media or even in social media. There are a number of people that talk about it, and those are the ones that are really uber successful. But I remember with my coaches, we talked about self-discipline consistently. Mm-hmm. It was an everyday thing. Self-discipline was always in the forefront. And it kind of goes back to stoicism, which you mentioned in the last podcast. It's being able to have the power of saying no. It's being able to have the power of being patient. Everything that you say no to is an opportunity to say yes to something else. Mm-hmm. And the opportunity cost of saying yes is a major thing that a lot of people don't think about. And I always have to continually remind myself that, because in work, at the informational age, I could be pulled thin quickly, real quickly, like blink of an eye quick, where someone comes up to me and says, "Hey, can you do this project?" Yeah, I can do that. Or it used to be like, yeah, I can do that. And then next thing you know, that person gets pissed off because I didn't do that thing. Mm-hmm. And because they don't understand that you have other obligations, which again, that's not a problem for them. That's a problem for you. And being spread too thin makes you mediocre. Being able to have a complete focus and having the patience of understanding to fight through those pains is self-discipline.
That you made a really good point there, and it's going to take me into a different point of this conversation. But you said something about if you're spread too thin and you're trying to do too many things, you're ultimately going to be mediocre at all of them. And what I have an issue with is that I don't think that bothers young kids anymore. I don't know how much they take pride in their craft on the field, off the field, for that to bother them. And here's why. We're currently in the fall season, right at the tail end of it. And for most parts of the country, and I've never totally understood this, fall baseball season is kind of looked as a secondary season. It's like, well, it's not spring or summer, it's fall. Like, it doesn't really matter that much. And if I do it, like, I'll do it for a few extra games, and like, I'll do it just because the weather's still nice, and I'll play a little bit, right? And so we have, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but it bothers me. We have a lot of athletes who say they want to play fall, and then, oh, well, I can't make it this Saturday because I'm going down to the big college football game. Or I can't make it this Saturday because of homecoming. Or I can't make it this Saturday or Sunday because of this, and other, this, right? And
but before we go in it, that's fine. Just understand that if you commit to something, all those things that you just said that you wanted to do, like, oh, Mizzou plays, I don't know who they played.
Georgia.
I'm going to the Georgia game. No, you don't go to the Georgia game. Like, if I was a Mizzou fan, I had to go to a wedding. I'm going to the wedding. I'm not going to the Georgia game.
Well, it comes back to the point of how much do you then care about getting the job done correctly and taking pride in what you do? That's where I think it ultimately goes back to. When I make a commitment to something that I'm going to get this job done at work, I have to get that job done. Like, it legitimately, because I've been taught since a young age that if you commit to something, you commit to something, okay? It bothers me if I leave work without getting that done. Like, that's not okay. It was the same thing of like,
it's the principle of
you
clearing.
You know how much it would have driven me nuts, and how many other very, very good high-end baseball players I played with. If all of a sudden we had practice that day and then something came up, like, there wasn't even an ounce of doubt that we would have been like, well, we have practice. I don't get it. What are you talking about? We can't go do this, dude. What? No, I can't go to the Cardinal game. I can't do it. I can't do this. I have practice. It was my priority. And that's what I'm getting at.
Well, it's a really good principle. I forgot who really lived by this. I think it was Winston Churchill, but it was it wasn't. It was somebody else. It was clearing off your desk for the day. So the man, I think his name Otis. I think I have to look back at what my readings, but he would have no drawers, no nothing, and it was just a table, the table that we're sitting at right now, and he would start the day. He would do the day, and if the desk was cluttered, he couldn't leave until the desk was uncluttered. So papers that came across his desk, anything that dealt with work, it had to be done. So then the next day, he was ready for whatever hit him for that day. Yeah. Today, we don't have that. It's more email and everything, but it's being able to clear out your inbox, being able to finish that project, and then knowing that you have a clean slate for tomorrow, because if you don't do that, then it starts stackpiling. For students, it would be, you got to clear out your homework first. You got to clear out your obligations next. And then after that, then it's free time. You get free time, whatever you want that to be.
And I'm not trying to place sole blame on parents at all, or kids for that matter. Mm-mm. So I always look at it this way. Kids are so impressionable, and they're always going to push that line. Like, you're never going to get like the perfect kid that just automatically falls on the line correctly. They're going to always push that line and see how much they can get away with. So I have to look at myself as a coach too. How accountable am I holding them? Because I've gone through all the different phases as a coach. I've gone through the phase when I was starting out, just out of college baseball. It's like, how are you missing? What are you doing? Mm-hmm. I guess you don't want to be good. Sorry. See you later. Whatever. And then I got to the point where I got kind of tired of fighting it, because it just kept coming up. Coach, I can't make practice for this. Coach, I can't make it to the game for this. And man, it's like, as a coach, you get so frustrated because, I don't think many people understand how many hours you put into thinking about the lineup and why you're doing this and why you're pitching certain people here and all the development that's gone into it for you to not see that guy get the opportunity on the field, right? And then So I got so frustrated that I went to the reverse spectrum. I was just like, whatever. Okay. I guess you're missing whatever. And no accountability was, held. Like the next day they'd show up and, well, I mean, parents are paying, so they're playing. And so I don't know. I think the accountability side on it falls on all of us to be better with it. I think
it goes back to living your own life as being very self-disciplined. If you're a self-disciplined person, people will follow suit.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, because then they start seeing the actions that you put into place, and then they're like, man, I cannot let that guy down. Correct. I can't let him down.
But I think the overall educational aspect also plays a huge role in it, to where we have to make sure they understand the amount of work that goes into being good at something. And that's not just sports. That's anything in life, okay? The amount of time and dedication and attention to detail that actually makes you a successful person, there is no number, but it's a lot. And it's those being able to do those menial tasks day in, day out that add up, like we talk about all the time on this podcast. And with a player, because obviously we have a baseball and softball audience, with a player, it's saying no to those distractions over and over and over again and prioritizing your wants and needs with that. If you want to be a part of a team, then there's some things that you have to do to be a part of that team. Otherwise, simply being put, you don't have to be a part of it. It is a choice. And that's something as a coach and as a parent, we have to get better at, in my opinion, in terms of talking to them about that.
It's extremely difficult because you have that little voice in your head that says it's okay. And then once you compromise yourself,
once you let that voice happen.
When you compromise, you're compromised for good. And it's hard to get back out of that compromise.
I've heard said best, that voice knows how to talk to you in all the right ways.
Very enticing.
When that voice gets you once, they're like, I know that angle.
Yeah.
I know that dude wants to go. You want to skip and go to the Cardinal game. That's going to be so much fun. Why? Dude, you can make up to practice. You can go back. Like, you can tell coach, like, listen, I'll get in my swings later, but this is going to be so much fun, and I can do both, right?
But it's a slow death, man. It's the career that when you make that decision, it's not a quick death. You won't realize it where you come back the next day, you might run a couple of laps or you might get some slack from your friends, and then you'll be like, oh, everything's fine now. But it's not fine because then it's a slower death because then at the end of your career, you're going to be wondering, why did this all happen? Well, I thought I was going to play college. I thought I was going to do this. I thought I was going to do that.
It's just leading to be mediocre versus leading to be, a winner.
Best example is Lou Gehrig. Like Lou Gehrig held the record for most games played, which I think is like 2,158 or something like that. And then Cal Ripken ended up beating him. But what's impressive about the Lou Gehrig streak was that he did it when everyone else had no work ethic whatsoever. It was very it was just rely on talent, drink beers. Babe Ruth was known to down scotch in the morning, and then eat like 3 hot dogs before a game and then just go hit homers. And then Lou Gehrig would actually work out, and he was very self-disciplined. Mm-hmm. And a guy that does that day in, day out, just to give you guys perspective, 162 games, if one of the players right now, if they have a broken nail, they don't play. Mm-hmm. Lou Gehrig, they did an X-ray scan of his hands at the end of his career. He had multiple fractures, and not just the right hand, but also the left hand. He was playing with broken bones, and he withstand that. Talk about self-discipline. Talk about the ability to where your mind says, "Dude, you're hurt. You're fine. Mm-hmm. You need to slow down. You can't play today." Like, chalk it up for a loss. Let's go for tomorrow, and then we'll be a lot better. He said, no, screw that. If I have the ability to help my team play and help my team win, if I think I can help my team win, I'm in that lineup. If I don't think I can help my team, I will take myself out of the lineup, which is what he did on one of his last games. He took himself out because he started having the ALS started happening to him, and he started taking himself out of the games. So I think a lot of guys, they feed into that mind and they don't realize what the body is capable of, and being self-disciplined and saying, No. Like how many players do you think that we have in our organization have test the limits of their body to a certain degree to where they can't go anymore?
Well, not many.
Not many. There's a select few, like Kenny Piper.
Yeah.
That dude's probably tested his limits.
Sure.
For 100%.
Yep.
Like he's just a different breed. Just imagine what the potential could be if players ended up realizing what self-discipline is and being able to know what commitment is and buying in. And I'm not saying you should buy in on if you become a Tiger, you should just be fully Tigers. No. I think you should play multiple sports. I think all that. But if you commit to a program, like example, fall or winter hitting, you show up for that every single time until that completion is done. Mm-hmm. So if you have to come in for, like we have a camp for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, or 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. It's called the high school prep program. It's 4 weeks long. If you sign up for that, it's $210. You end up being there every single day because it's for 4 weeks, right? Sure. Now expand that to 8 weeks, expand that to 16 weeks, like our winter training program. You show up for every single winter training program. It's not, Jimmy has a party on Saturday night. I'm going to go to Jimmy's party and hitting's at 8 a.m. There's no way I'm making that. Or you can do both and then take the brunt of it.
Right.
Or you can make a decision.
So let's kind of wrap this up. Give me your best, and I'm not going to sit here and give parental advice because I'm not a parent. But if you were giving advice to a coach on how to better communicate commitment to a team from a team aspect to your players, what would be your best actionable advice right now?
You have to start with your own self. You have to be self-disciplined to do that. Like I try to work on that every single day. Mm-hmm. And believe me, I fail a lot of the times. 100%. Like it is so hard.
Oh, sure.
It is extremely hard. Sure. But living like the book that changed my mind was Stoicism. Like I read a book on Stoicism and it was just a big shot to my brain and saying, Spiker, what the hell are you doing, man? Mm-hmm. Like you talk about this, but you're not doing it. Like as long as you're providing action on trying to be some type of self-disciplined person, whether that is you say, all right, I'm going to do this and you end up doing it. Mm-hmm. That's a good starting point. So I think it starts with the actions first.
I think you're 100% correct with that. Like no player is going to accept any information from a coach if that coach is canceling practice on a regularity or showing up late or not being about what they're said they're going to be about. Okay. So you're 100% correct. I think the second major action point that I would take is trying to reestablish the boundaries of commitment and what it means and building back more of a team concept to the whole deal. I think too often nowadays we're getting way too individualistic and it's all about me. And so understanding and teaching players that when you do miss that practice, you're not just hurting yourself, but you're hurting the players around you in a manner that now your performance is going to be less than it probably could be. And that stuff adds up. And that's how mediocre teams become mediocre teams. And that's how mediocre players become mediocre players. And that's how we've always heard of this guy. He had all the potential in the world, and then he never made anything of it. And that's a message that has to be, it shouldn't be brought to the attention of putting down a player for that. It should be brought to the attention of holding a higher standard for the greater good of all. And that if you're there day in, day out for your team, then everybody gets what they want. We talk about that all the time with our players. It's not being on the island of me and being that team guy that is there celebrating the success of everybody else just as much as your own. And just constantly bringing that back to attention that, okay, you see that, I remember I have this graphic right in front of my head. It's some football team running their sprints, and everybody's touching that line, and the one guy is not touching that line with a foot. And all of a sudden, he's a foot short, right? Do you know what I'm talking about? And that's the issue. That if you cut corners like that on your swings, on your reps, on your practices, that those things add up, and that's a big reason why teams aren't successful and you aren't. And I would say communicating that in a effective manner to where you can try to get buy-in from your players is probably where I would start, number one.
Last thing I would say is, which reminded me, is letting your players know there's a cost to everything. There's no free lunch. Everything has a cost. There's always a give and take. So when you cut a corner, there's a cost. When you compromise yourself with your inner demon, which is you don't have to do this, there's a cost. Now, the cost might not be evident. That cost might come down later down the road. Just imagine it's like a car payment.
All right.
That car payment comes every month. Where's that cost going to be at? Is it going to be $1,000 or is it going to be $200?
Right.
But there's always a cost. But you also get a benefit out of it, depending on what you put in.
For sure.
Guys, that's this episode of The Closing Pitch. My name's Spiker Helms. Across from me is David Birkby. In the next episode, we're going to have Rafi Lopez back in the hot seat. So that will be a fun conversation. Former big leaguer. Like to talk a little shop on him in the realm of the industry right now. Actually don't know where the conversation is going to go. We haven't talked about a topic yet.
Never do with Roth.
Yeah, but it will be good. It will be entertaining, and there will be some fire. So, guys, subscribe to the channel. We will catch you in the next episode.
See you guys.